All right, well, good morning, afternoon, or evening. I want to welcome you to today's event on behalf of the panel and the event planners. We're very excited to be hosting this second in this three-part series of change management and DevOps. I'm just excited and happy that so many of you took some time out to join us today. Just some housekeeping items want to go over. Just unmute yourself to talk, but please remember to put yourself back on mute because we are not using webinar, we're using the large meeting format, so everyone has a chance to chime in. I really encourage you guys to talk to your peers, use the chat to have side conversations. If you want to ask one of the panelists a question, make sure you send the questions in the chat because unlike the webinar format, there is no Q&A. So ask your questions in the chat would be great. We'll try to monitor the chat as much as possible. Sorry, work from home things in the background going on. We're using breakout rooms for the first time in a large meeting like this. So I just ask you to kind of be patient with us. We did a little bit of rehearsal, but there may be snags that we run into. We created some breakout rooms for us to use to facilitate more intimate conversations around these key topics. Also, the session is being recorded and will be posted on the ITSM website within a week. So in this session, we want to focus a deeper dive on some of the topics that you mentioned, the audience here mentioned in the form of survey results and a poll that went out. We also reviewed the chat log to come up with a collection of important topics. So we want to facilitate a very highly interactive conversation. So we're going to use breakout rooms and polls for that. We are delighted that so many people that joined us last time on the panel are returning. In addition, we have some security experts, security folks at Elucid joining this conversation. So they bring that industry leading expertise into this conversation, which is great. So the session format for today is, the welcome, going over some of the house rules. And then we're going to be talking through these important topics that we want to cover. And then we will go into breakout rooms. Each room will have a facilitator that will help to facilitate the conversation. We're going to ask that someone in the breakout room serves as a scribe to take notes. And then we want to be able to post those notes to the community at large for their benefit. And then we'll join the main room to do some closing remarks and a preview of what we're hoping to plan for session 301. All right, so the breakout room, like I said, there's 11 or 12 breakout rooms. They've been prearranged. Each room will have a facilitator. There's a note-taking template that's available to everyone that is editable by everybody. And these templates we use to take notes. This is a nice little, in the spirit of COVID and getting vaccinated. Mark Smalley, our kind of friend behind the scenes, who's been a wonderful partner in this, contributing to some ideas and topics. He shared this slide with us, so I thought it was really a kind of a fun slide. So I wanted to share it with the rest of the group. So these are the topics that we're going to cover in our general session. Again, these topics were pulled directly from survey results and also pulled from the chat log from Session 101. We'll cover risk assessment, culture and organizational change management, change approval authority, security-related issues, DevOps, release management and deployment management, and ITSM tool and other tool integrations. So with that said, let me move on. I think we are scheduled to send out our polls. So I'll go ahead and do that. And again, the polls are going to be used to help facilitate conversation in this general session. So we have 3 poll questions. The first one is, what are 2 or 3 most important decisions you made about change management process related to DevOps? The second is, what type of support for change management does your institution show? And the third question is, what is the biggest impediment to cultural change on your campus? And these are all multiple choice questions. So I'll give you about, since there's 3 questions, maybe about a minute to start responding. Then once I see the responses slowing down, I'll go ahead and end the poll and share the results. All right, we got about 50% of the group has responded. Keep it open for a little bit longer. And we have about 3/4 of you have responded. Seeing a very kind of a mixed answers. Nothing really is jumping out. It's kind of interesting. All right, looks like about 83 of you have responded out of 101. A few more chiming in, thanks. All right, so polls have been open about 2 minutes. I have 87 out of 102 responding. I think that's a good number. I'll go ahead and end the polls. And I'll go ahead and share the poll results. And what I think I'll do is for the panelists, I'll go ahead and leave the poll results open, and then we can move into the general session conversation. All right, so I'll turn it over to our first question here, our first topic. Anybody who wants to start can go up to bat, keeping with the baseball theme.
Well, this is just a bit too quiet, folks. So I see on risk, a nice big red line there on the survey. And so I would challenge us to contemplate and discuss not only what are the benefits of risk of DevOps and mashing it in together with ITIL, but what are the risks? What's the downside? What makes us nervous about it?
Or what's the upside, Hank? Are there repeatable processes? Do we get away from click ops as we move to more mature processes? And does it also drive down risk potentially?
Well, I agree. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
It's interesting that people have put risk as their top choice in terms of change management. And I think that that's absolutely right, that we need to ask what it is that change management is trying to address. And risk is clearly top of that list. And how do we manage the risks associated with making changes? And how do we do that in non-DevOps? And how do we do that in DevOps?
And when you think about risk and change, not every change is the same risk, right? If I'm deploying an update to a website to move a button down the page, extremely low risk. If I am rolling out a new firmware to my core router, freaking huge risk, right? And potentially can take down the entire network and the entire infrastructure. So it really is, you can't look at every change as being the same. And I think that's one of the downsides of some of the older risk management practice was every change was a change, no difference. But if you start assessing what is really risky, what does risk mean? You know, there are things that don't matter that much.
And it's not just what the impact is of making the change, but it's how easy is it to go back if the change fails. So if you are just moving a button down and you can roll back the code and move the button back up, then if it does go wrong, it's low impact. If you're making a change to data and you can't put the data back to how it should be if it goes wrong, then the impact is so much larger.
And with a DevOps model where different teams are working on small pieces of a bigger pie and not everybody knows what everybody is doing, there is the potential risk that an unforeseen risk can have a very wide impact. And this has happened with some of the large cloud providers. So while I agree with Josh strongly that DevOps as a model does drive down risk, if we let it get out of control, then and if we don't have some kind of gate in there to accurately gauge what the risk threshold is, we might find ourselves in a bit of a bind.
And it's quite important to pull out of what you just said that making multiple changes at the same time is always a risky thing, regardless of the particular risk of each individual change. So I hope we'll cover that in the release and deployment section later on.
And one of the things from a risk perspective is the communication of that risk to the larger IT community. So right now, our focus for change management is really about communicating the changes for those that we deem medium to high risk. So that's really the focus of it at this point.
And sometimes it's very difficult to gauge where the risk is. As a case in point, in a conversation I had with a large cloud provider, they had pushed what they thought was good to go Kubernetes backplane code out as the prime selection for the code upgrade, which just happened to have a major security defect in it that they had missed, and they needed to go up 2 more revs. And so it's very easy to miss this stuff. And as we become more of managers of portfolios of SaaS applications, this gets to be very challenging to see where that risk is to our product and services.
So what are some ways that we can assess risk? How do we go about determining what the risks are?
I think that there are a lot of ways to measure that. I can share some of the things that we've done. First of all, was going through a bunch of different applications and services and kind of rating their criticality in the first case, because a big change to a very small, not critical application can be much lower risk than a tiny change to something that is core and fundamental. So you kind of have to understand the system you're talking about first. But then when you're talking about change, and then there's, by the way, there's a lot of stuff going back and forth in the chat as well. People are talking about, rollback plans. So if you can roll forward and you can roll back, that's a lot less risky than something where it's only a roll forward and then you've got to fix it where it lies. So understanding the nature of your change and along different axes of testing and communication and rollback, and how many times you've done this and how many times it's been, how much you can automate it. All these things help you assess and measure that risk.
So David, but to that point, we at NYU, and taking into consideration that not all changes are equal in terms of risk, we have a risk assessment that we ask 5 or 6 questions, and they're multiple choice, and we rank them, we weight them behind the scenes, and we come up with a risk and an impact value of low, medium, and high for each. How do we do that, plus the type of things that you're talking about with whether there's a rollback plan, what that rollback plan, how do we do that in that automated way? That's one of the things that I'm thinking about as we move into DevOps. How do we have programmatically those types of assessments done without the intervention of a human answering those questions?
That's a really good question, and I don't have a really good answer.
Yeah, I think that's why we're here today. I think we want to learn from each other and figure it out.
Yeah, I think one approach is to say that certain kinds of changes you can look at and score, and then these kind of automated code deployments for my web application can be viewed as generally low risk, but you're not measuring each one of those code pushes individually. You're more doing them as a collective thing, and then you know, using the ITIL terminology of a standard change.
Right. Yep.
But it's not just about automating the code deployment, it's about automating the test scripts, actually having a test set that you can build into that automation, which gives you confidence that you know what the end result will be.
And
part
security,
of that-
I'd add security to that as well. Security testing, including performance, you know, all of the, I think those are all thresholds that we have to have some agreement on, have to be met. And then what that threshold is kind of a back and forth between the change folks and the dev folks, or the operations and the dev folks, right? You come to some equal sort of footing where you decide that, okay, if you meet these thresholds, we'll allow it to go.
When we were making this journey, and these three were the criterias: performance, the features, the functional testing, and the security testing. So the security testing tools which we used had took time for us to go back and forth a bit on setting up the right profiles and understanding the risk. It's not a one-day thing. It's not just that you convert a manual process to automated and you'll be working through it. But that's the time which was worth spending on setting up the right profiles, identifying the weak links, and focusing the risks which we want to prioritize.
That is challenging in smaller organizations who have staff that wear many hats, that are doing many different things. We have to find the way to have the discipline, not only to pick the right tools, but to learn how to properly use those tools effectively. So for instance, if we talk about, let's take the example of what we use for our testing run books, we build them into Azure DevOps right into the board. And then we attach the code to that, and then that gets applied to the testing program that runs to test our code. It's not fully automatic, but it's cheap, it's easy to do, and for a small development team of 5 people, we can manage it.
Hey, this is Mitch. Just making sure we're good on time. I think, you know, we've had a great conversation on risk assessment. We've touched on security aspects. We touched, I think, a little bit on DevOps. One of the 2 main topics that I think really were relevant and on top of mind for people, if we can, you know, use the remaining 9 or so minutes to talk through the change approvals and authority, and around helping to move organizations, helping to change the culture and slowly driving adoption around, you know, starting up at DevOps and taking that journey.
If I can bat off on that first one about change approvals, we talked about risk, and not all changes have the same amount of risk. And in the same way, not all changes need the same level of approval. If it's a small change, it can be approved within the team that's making the change. If it's a bigger change, then it might need to go up a level. Not all changes need to be considered at the cab level, and not all cabs need to be in-person cabs. So it's deciding what your threshold is for different sorts of changes, and then agreeing who can approve different levels of change. And I think the rule needs to be that changes are approved as close to the coalface as is possible without losing sight of the risks.
So how would you explain somebody between authority and approval? And I think maybe somebody might be jumping on this, so I may have jumped the gun.
No, I was just going to say, I agree, but I think that is kind of well-defined when you're sort of talking about especially the infrastructure and sort of the more standard waterfall type of application development. But when you start moving into Agile and DevOps, that's where change management gets pushed back, because this going through approval and authority, I think DevOps people basically say, hey, why do we need to go through all of that? That's going to slow down where we're agile and we're DevOps because we're fast. Now you're saying we need to go slower. And not that I have the answer, but I think that's the challenge.
So that's a culture thing, that this perception that it means slower. And I would totally disagree with that. I don't think it does mean slower. So Mitch said, what's the difference between approval and authority? And I think that change authority is the people at the top saying where the approvals can come. So setting the policy, setting the risk appetite, and then the approvals can happen much lower down the tree. So in DevOps, if you've agreed that most of what you do in DevOps is automated, you agree that the approvals can be automated. But when you're making these big changes, then they don't get automated and they don't get automatic change approval. So the authority is agreeing when is it automated, when does it need to go higher up.
I think a lot of this comes back to the cultural change, right? It's not a us versus them kind of thing. It's what appetite does the organization and where are they balancing between safety and, it doesn't have to necessarily be a compromise between slow and safe versus fast and risky. I think it all boils down to the kind of velocity that the organization wants to achieve. And that whole idea is that sometimes it's hard for organizations to trust, right? Employees want to be trusted, and leadership wants their employees to be trustworthy, right? So it's that balance of being trusted and being trusted by your organization, but also being trustworthy.
Yeah, I think part of it is that some of our DevOps teams anyway want to be completely finished before they enter it into change management. Whereas another one is like, well, we have these 10 user stories we want to get finished by Thursday. And so they put in a change saying, we want to do these 10 stories. Well, if they only get to 9 of them, well, then they just mark that in their sum up for the change. And I think, you can't wait until the testing is completely finished if you want to have any time for feedback from CAB or a lower level CAB if it, the next level up that you need approval from.
Or you switch it the other way around. It sounds to me like you're talking about whether or not you can make these changes if they are successful. Why not have that conversation at the beginning of the sprint and agree that if the sprint achieves its objectives, they go into production? You agree
that's
what the
basically what I was
threshold
saying.
is. Yeah.
But Andrew, and maybe the assumption there is that the organization, talking at second last bullet point, is the organization using agile methods, right? Are they investing in training in Scrum? Are they developing Scrum teams? Are they, developing and using product-based models? Or are we still kind of stuck in like we're just doing it waterfall and we think we're agile, even though it's not really agile, it's more chaotic, right? I think that assumes you have some sort of agility.
The greatest risk actually is where you're doing a little bit of everything and you're not clear what you're doing. So you're doing a bit of DevOps, but you're not fully automated DevOps, but you don't see any need to do change management because you're DevOps. And that's why you need a change authority which sets the policy, and it says, if you go through these processes, then you sit in that camp. And if you don't follow those processes, you don't sit in that camp.
Just want to point out in the chat, Larry shared it sounds like a rather sophisticated process. I'd love to hear more about, which is having different items, having different levels of approvers available. And so some items with a certain low risk, the developer has the rights to push things out, but other items, it's somebody else. So you're kind of flexing, not just based on the risk of the individual change, but on the nature of the item involved and who gets the authority to do what kinds of things to it.
David, that's a great segue. Why don't I open up the breakout rooms and maybe Larry can join one of his breakout rooms and and share with his peers. So with that said, let me go ahead and open the breakout rooms. Not breakout rooms. I don't want you to break up with anybody at this point. The breakout rooms and have some fun. And we'll come back 5 minutes till the hour to do closing remarks. So I'm now opening up all the rooms. Go ahead and assign yourself to a room. Let me broadcast a message. Oh wait, okay, I don't need to do that. Again, this is an experiment. So if you have trouble joining a room, let me know and I can help you. Looks like a couple people are going to the different rooms, so that's good. Not seeing the breakout rooms. Okay. I think it's a little pop-up. Let me stop sharing this screen for now. Breakout rooms. Okay. Anyone else not seeing the breakout rooms? Look like Anne was reporting some issues. Like it's slowly joining the breakout rooms.
Yeah, a lot of us are not getting
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how I can kind of just send that message again without closing all the rooms. That would be bad.
I'm trying to see if I can find anything in here. I don't see anything.
Is there a Mac PC correlation here? I'm on a Mac. I don't see any breakout rooms.
I'm on a PC and I don't see any breakout rooms, but I think breakout rooms and joining breakout rooms can be set one of two ways. The moderator can do it, or host can do it, or participants can do it. And maybe it's set to only host moderators can actually go to breakout rooms.
Because I see there are 66 unassigned, which means some may have been successful. Wow, okay. Again, experiment.
It looks like those of us who'd set up as hosts, we all got assigned into our rooms. But
yeah.
Everybody else was not assigned and did not.
Well, maybe this is a breakout room.
Yeah, I apologize for this.
If people want to, let's do this. People want to just start typing in the chat what room you want to go into. We'll start throwing you into rooms. So if you got a topic or a room or something you're interested in, just spit it out and we'll find you and put you in a room. It's not elegant, but it'll work.
What are the choices? I don't know what.
So change management, DevOps, security, culture, and project release management.
Okay. Of course, now it's scrolling faster than I can.
Might be an untenable amount of manual.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's a little crazy, but it's better than nothing. Getting a few done.
And I'll try to help as well by looking at the chat here. Okay, Michael, you're assigned. Maureen, you're assigned. Larry, you're assigned. Saw Erica, she wants to go to change. You're assigned.
I'm just picking up anybody who's listed culture and doing those ones.
Okay.
I'm finding
Alright.
that's more efficient than trying to read
Sure.
everybody one at a time. So just
Okay. I'll do DevOps.
for others.
Yeah.
And I'm not in my room right now, but I'll obviously get back there as soon as I can.
All right. So I'll pick up the DevOps ones.
Sounds good.
Okay. And we'll try to balance it so each room has enough people in it, not one room's, weighted.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, Heidi, project. Project. Robert.
Could the largest group just stay here and make this the breakout room for the largest topic or group?
Yeah, maybe this is the leftover room, right? This will be the Breakfast Club room.
Anybody else looking to get moved into one of the culture topics?
Keith, project. Julian. Christy. Catherine.
The list is getting shorter.
Yep. So I've done all the ones that indicated project as their interest. Yeah, it's possible, Erica. Those who did not register.
I'd say at this point, if you're still in this room and wanted to go to one of the other rooms, you might want to put it in the chat again, because it's hard to keep going back to the list as it scrolls. So several for change management, please. Okay.
Okay.
Start moving those ones.
And I'll move DevOps and project and culture.
Got it.
Okay, so DevOps, Joanne. Okay, Tom for culture. It's just going to be a solid 20 minutes of me talking to myself as I move people in. You might want to skip that if you listen to the recording. Yeah, it looks like we just have 12 people left. If you're still in the main room and want to join a room, go ahead and just put that in the chat. You're still doing change, David?
Yeah, I was picking up the last few here. I'm seeing a few more who are asking for that.
Okay.
Down to...
There's 9 people left. If you don't have a preference, we can just make this room, main room, just a general chat. Okay, I see Wes joined DevOps room.
Got him. And
change management, put her in room 2.
All right, I'm going to jump back to my room and.
Okay, cool. I'll finish up here. Thanks.
Yep, welcome.
All right. All right, Erica taken care of. Robert, Lou, Jacob, Denise, Dean, you want to stick in the main room or you want to join one of the breakout rooms?
Hey, this is Robert. I had mentioned change management.
Okay, we'll send you over there. Thanks.
Thanks, sir.
Mitch, actually, can you see me on the list and put me back into DevOps too? Because I can't figure out how to put myself back in there.
Can't figure out how to do that either.
Yeah, so you want to go to DevOps 2? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Hi, this is Jacob Schmidt. I just joined a little late, so I didn't know exactly what was going on here.
Neither do we, so you're in good company.
I'd be interested in change management if you wanted to drop me into that
there you go.
session.
You should have received an invite. So David, why don't I move DevOps and DevOps in the same room, because it's not a whole lot happening
Yeah,
there. So
And if you can
yeah,
merge me in with that somehow, that'd be great, because I don't see how to do that here.
yeah. So I'm putting everyone in DevOps 2, and
Okay.
then DevOps 2. Okay. All right, cool. So yeah, everybody should be in there.
And then how do I get back in there myself? That's my question.
Yeah.
Do you?
Hold on, maybe I can do this. Okay.
That's DevOps 1.
Yeah, no, it says you're
There we
not
go.
joined. Okay, so you're in DevOps 2? Oh, awesome. Okay. All right, Dean and Lou, where would you like to go? Okay, so change management for Dean. Okay. Hey, Lou, buddy, what's happening? All right, Denise, where would you like to go?
Change management.
Okay. And there you are.
Thank you.
Okay. Lou, would you like to go to a particular room? Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. Sorry about that. Learned a lot about how to manage these breakout rooms with a large group of people. Maybe it wasn't really meant for this, but appreciate your patience.
We started without you.
No, that's fine. Totally fine. You guys have all the answers, so that's good. So really what to accomplish in this room is, I'm here just to kind of facilitate conversation. I was a PM before moving to the service management, office. So I have a little bit of background in project management, and I was just wanting to just kind of talk through how you manage changes from a project perspective and from a release management perspective. Whether you use actual deployments and the type of deployments you use, your release schedules, how that integrates into change management. Would somebody be willing to be kind of a scribe? Maybe somebody that has really like focused on what people are saying and could add those notes.
Sure, I can do it.
Thanks, Kurt. I will send you the link to the Google sheet or slide. So there you go. Do you see that in chat? Kurt, do you see that in chat?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Yes.
Okay, cool. So we are, so the title of our slide is the project/release management slide, or probably just says project. And you don't have to worry about putting our names down there. So, all right. So in the, unfortunately, the 8 minutes, or actually 15 minutes that we have, what we can cover. So we guys started to bring up what was being discussed so far.
We were talking about shared issues that we might have around our release and deployments. So we had talked about potential organizational change, contributing to some of our problems and maturing our release and deployment schedules. And in the rush to get different applications out the door, Central IT is forever left supporting those applications.
Yeah. Maybe to kind of kick us off, I can tell you how we've solved some of the coordination challenges between our projects and integrating change management, in that process. So we rely heavily on a service transition checklist of sorts, and we have various control gates through the different phases. So we've lined our project and service management phases. So when it comes to identifying, if the project is going to require some CIs, right, to be installed, for example, an application or a database. We work with them, the ITSM team works with the project team to define standard change models even before the project goes live, right? So that at the end of the day, they have a release schedule that includes a major and minor release, includes communicated maintenance schedules with the key stakeholders, and includes a library of standard changes that have already been approved, that they can just use whatever means to deploy those standard changes to implement. I mean, it's maturing, but that's kind of how we've tackled from a project perspective. Anybody doing something a little similar? Or?
Well, our organization has a pretty defined definition between standard and non-standard changes to help control risk. And so as a general approach, we try to decentralize that decision and trust employees to make that appropriate distinction. And if it's a non-standard change, then it goes CAB for review to look at the risk, look at the communication plan, look at what the backup change might be.
Well, I think the opportunity we have, or the benefit of incorporating that into the project is we have a standard change library. And in normal, business as usual, if somebody wanted to submit somebody felt a normal change was low enough risk and has a history of repeated success, you could propose that as a standard change. It would go through our CAB. The CAB would say, yes, this is a standard change. And then it becomes available in our service management tool as a standard change. But unfortunately, we don't have a robust library of standard changes. So this incorporating in the project has helped us identify what our regular maintenance activities, when the project moves into operations, what standard changes can be created to help move things along or make these quick, low risk changes.
We don't tend to do that within projects. We tend to do that in the ongoing CAB discussions.
Yeah.
And so helping to understand that transition from non-standard to standard is kind of just an ongoing issue. And usually that's brought forward by the people who are continuing to bring forward a very similar non-standard change.
See, that's the interesting point, because we still do it as part of as our change board. But as the change manager, I'm usually the one who says, okay, I've seen this one come through a lot, and it's had a high level of success.
Yeah.
Should we move this to being a standard? Because otherwise people are just going to I'm putting it in as whatever I'm going to put it in as, and then I end up going back in some cases and reminding people, hey, this was approved as a standard. Change your template so that it comes across as a standard from now on.
Right.
So that we can get that pre-approval process done. And unfortunately, we don't have an automated approval process yet. I'm still working on that. So I have to hand approve all of them anyway.
I mean, how do you deal with, speaking of, trying to, think around projects, releases and deployment. From the project perspective, your deliverables could be changes, right? How do you manage a cycle of changes? Here's a really good example. How do you manage, for example, if you are a project manager and you know that several buildings are going to need to have their switches replaced, right, as part of an infrastructure project? How do you manage the change management aspect of all the CIs being replaced with new hardware?
In our existing system, and we're in the process of moving between systems for change management. In our existing system, they have to update the CIs with the new equipment. They create a new set of CIs and they'll put both sets of CIs into the, or both sets of assets into the change request, saying that these are being decommissioned and these are being added.
You have a hand up. I mean, we're a small enough group. You could just feel free to take yourself off of unmute yourself and ask your question.
In our organization, we
Sorry, Kurt. I think Dawn had her hand up. If you don't mind.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So, Mike Mitchell, in your example of replacing the network switches in buildings, that's actually something that I'm currently in the process of doing. And so when we talk about, managing change, one of the things that we do is contact all the occupants of the building and, make arrangements for that scheduled maintenance. And one thing that I often encounter is a pushback to the scheduled maintenance, and you really have to have a hard conversation about how scheduled maintenance is important in compared to the accidental crash of the network switch that leaves them out of service for days on end. So planned versus accidental.
Yep.
What we've done to just give a little side point on that one, what we did was we've got a specified networking maintenance window it's traditionally just for our data center, but we advertise that across the university as, hey, these are the hours that we're going to be working on the network on these Sundays, for instance. And then it's like your systems may be down at this point, and that's been the standard maintenance window forever. And then if we're doing something on the non-standard maintenance window, that's when we send out those communications and go from there and get feedback from people and find out, what's going on. But usually we try and plan multiple buildings for the same time period and have teams of people working. So if somebody says, well, we can't be down at that point in time, we shift the work to a different building and then come back to that one later.
Yeah, and Maureen, you mentioned, the power of the communication of using planned maintenance, right? Not having to just sending communication out for every single thing that you do, especially knowing the customers knowing that you have a planned maintenance. How kind of last talking point or question I can bring up to the group before we have to join back is, are you working as from a change management perspective and integrating into project and releases? Are you asking your teams to come up with a release schedule and then using that release schedule to maybe inform some of those maintenance schedules, whether it's a major or minor schedule for releases? And really maybe early questions, who manages your release calendar?
Decentralized in our case.
Decentralized, okay.
We tried to do it centrally at one point, but it becomes very onerous in a large institution.
Yeah, agreed with that. We manage the IT calendar, but other departments there's a central calendar that's used, and we post our maintenance to that calendar, and then other groups post theirs as well to that calendar.
I see. Okay. So anyone have a burning question, something that when they came into this breakout room was hoping to ask, at least try to get addressed? Why did you pick this topic, in other words?
I have a quick question, which is, have you guys found any vendor tools or any tooling particularly helpful in doing, this kind of management?
Just a quick answer. We're looking at integrating Puppet into our standard changes in our service management tool.
We're using Puppet and SCCM and Intune for desktop.
How many of you have integrated your project management system into your service management system? Like you could trigger a change request from a project task.
That's my goal.
Yeah.
That's why we're currently in 3 different systems for ticketing, change management, and project management.
Oof, yeah, I hear you.
So we're currently moving change management into the ticketing system, and then we're going to be looking at project and doing integration with project.
Keith, Christy, you guys have anything you want to comment on? Those who've been kind of quiet.
I just appreciate getting the opportunity to sit and listen to your guys' experiences. I'm fairly new to the IT project management space, and so just trying to garner what I can. This has been fascinating. Thank you.
No problem. I can tell you, living in both sides of the world, the biggest thing is getting your PMO and your SMO to integrate. I would not necessarily advocate having the SMO report up to like a project program manager or director, but at least a tight integration and good governance is going to make it very successful to integrate the processes. So, all right, I'm going to send us back to the main room. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time, and I really appreciate you being patient and flexible with us as we tried the breakout rooms for the first time. So.
And we're back.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for being patient with us. It looks like we lost a few people, but that's to be expected. So I just want to hopefully your conversations went really well. That you enjoyed the 10 minutes or 15 minutes or so that you actually had in your breakout room. My group started without me, which is totally fine. I'm going to share those slides with everybody once we kind of get that all recorded and posted and stuff. So you will have access to what other people have shared in their breakout rooms. If people did take notes, which I'm hoping that did happen. Just some closing remarks. We are planning a third installment, the last installment of this change management and DevOps series. This time for session 301, we're hoping to actually have some use cases. So, how did University X, implement or change culture to, implement DevOps or, whatever the case may be. We're trying to come up with some solid use cases that will hopefully help you take that as an example to your organization and start down this road. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. If you wouldn't mind, take a moment to fill out the survey. It helps us to improve our planning for the future. Here you go. I'll also put it in the chat link, or I'll put it in the chat. Okay. Okay, so thank you so much, panelists, for taking your time out today to share your experiences and your thought with the audience. If you're looking for a platform because you've got a voice, you have something you want to share with the community, or you have a desire to present, please let me know. Contact me, mpelts@usc.edu. Be sure to check out our 301 event we're trying to schedule for June, July. And I highly encourage you sign up for the May 4th, May I Till 4 Be With You event happening on May 4th, of course. You should have all received an invite to register. So we're excited about being able to put that on. Lots of great content we're developing for you all. The transcripts and recordings will be available within 5 business days. All right, I'll fix that and send out the link when I send out the recording. So thanks, David and Charles. I'll make sure that the event is added to the survey. Be sure to look for more event announcements coming up for this year. The recording and transcripts will be available 5 business days. And if you want to view any of the past recordings, they're available on our ITSM website. Have a wonderful day, and thanks for your time.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Mitch.
Sure.
Thank you, Mitch.
Thank you.
All right, bye, everyone.